It was the first time that I met him. It was the first time that I've ever met him before, and it was a very pleasant exchange.
Did you see him after that, on
Yes.
any day after that?
Yes, the very next day, at the evening, around 11:30 that evening, this would have been after the polls would have closed. I went to the Ashman's building so that to be available for when the verification process would have started.
And did it start?
So it started around 12:30 a.m. So that would have been the morning of the 3rd. So that very night into the morning. But at that point, not all of the parties had their statements of polls that they were receiving also on an ongoing basis. So I spoke to him about that.
Who's him?
The returning officer, Mr. Mingo. I spoke to him about that, and he agreed to pause the process and to recommence at 2:30 a.m., which it did.
Now, I want to take you, well, from the night of the 2nd to the 4th of March, you continued to act and play a role as counting agent.
That's correct.
So I want to take you to the 4th of March at about 4 a.m. Were you there?
Yes,
And did you stay there during the 4th of March?
that's correct.
Did you leave at any time?
No,
Did you return on the 5th?
on the 5th, that's correct.
Uh-huh. While you were there on the 5th, did you see any GCOM officials?
I did. I saw commissioners present, Mr. Saiskan Raj, Ms. Bibi Shadiq, Mr. Robeson Ben. I also saw the CEO for GCOM, Mr. Lowenfield. I saw as well Mr. Mingo, Roxanne Myers, chairman of GCOM. Those were the ones that were familiar to me. I saw some of the other members from the commission as well.
Sure. Now, I want to ask you this. Can you tell me how many GCOM commissioners, correct?
That's as far as I'm aware.
And then the 7th person chairs the commission.
That's correct. And that is a process of identifying the chairman is also outlined in the Constitution, which requires a list of names submitted by the leader of the opposition and for the choice to be made by the president.
I see. Now, at any point on that day, did you see the GCOM Commissioner Charles Corbin?
I did. I did.
Can you tell us very briefly in what circumstances you saw Commissioner Corbin?
So shortly after there was what purported to be the announcement by Claremont Mingo, I saw the chairman of GCOM coming down the stairs, and Mr. Corbin huddling her as she was coming down the stairs, seemingly to prevent other people from getting close to her. So as she was walking, he was effectively engulfing her, moving from side to side. I remember this distinctly because it was one of the most peculiar as well as disturbing things that I saw around that period, which stood out because there were many disturbing things that happened at that time.
Sure.
But he was huddling her as she was moving, preventing anybody from getting close to her.
Right.
You are demonstrating from the witness box with arms outstretched. Is this how this gentleman was?
Exactly how it was. And
So he had his hands around the chairperson?
close, not touching, but maybe a few inches away, maybe 6 inches to 12 inches away.
And
Moving.
she was in front and he behind?
As she was walking, yes, he was in front. Front and the side. So
So he was walking backwards?
effective, no, sides. As they were coming down the stairs, he was at the side of her, maybe like a step in front of her.
Sorry, yes.
A protective position, you would say.
It was like she was playing defense.
Minister, you say, or you characterized it as peculiar, but wasn't the atmosphere one of a commotion after Mr. Mingo made his purported declaration?
So on that floor, which would have been the first floor, there weren't many persons on that floor, or persons that were not functionaries with the authority or the permission to be there. So on the ground floor, there was more commotion, but this is on the first floor. There were persons like the ambassadors were there, the observers, the foreign observers were there.
It was crowded,
At that point, there weren't as many people.
but they were moving from the first floor to the ground floor.
Not when she was coming down the stairs. So most of the people were there on that floor when Mingo was standing between the top floor and that first floor. So he was on a platform between the two floors. And after that announcement was made and he went back into his office, at that point, it started to die down and most people went back downstairs. In fact, they were directed to go back downstairs.
So the commotion had subsided, you said?
That is correct, yes.
Minister, when you saw this, was the, I'm trying to get it clear in my mind, so it's from the top floor that the the chairman is being brought down, or she's coming down?
She's coming down.
Yes. Well, you have just described the situation on the middle floor. Did you see any threat to her at that time?
No, most of the persons that were there were officials, so not persons that anyone would perceive as threats.
You mean GCOM officials?
GCOM officials or party officials?
Now, you have just referred to it, so you knew that the returning officer had made a declaration of the results for District 4.
Sorry, just to add to that, I just want to be very clear. GCOM officials, party officials, election observers, the foreign election observers, and the ambassadors. So persons with a profile.
Yeah.
So you knew that the returning officer had made a declaration of the results for District 4 from what you just told us.
Yes,
And this was on the 5th of March 2020.
that's correct.
As counting agent, did you do anything?
Yes, I had a letter prepared for the request for a recount.
Did you have any sort of legal time frame within which that had to be served on the required official?
That's correct. So we have up until noon of the next day. So the day after the declaration is made, we have up until noon of the next day.
So in terms of hours, can you tell us what that would be?
So it would have been about 24 hours in that situation.
Having had this letter prepared requesting a recount, what did you do?
It may be just under about maybe 20 hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, what did you do?
Well, I attempted to serve this letter on Mr. Mingo, who was already up on the top floor, and I was blocked by police officers who were manning the stairway.
How did you know they were police officers?
They were dressed in uniform. And I stayed there for a while. Eventually, yeah,
I wanted to ask you, in this,
just turned off the mic.
in this blocking by police officers, were you wearing a
Yes.
GCOM ID badge?
I never had my badge off. In fact, all of the videos you will see today, you will see the red strap around
The badge
my
is
neck.
clearly visible.
Yes, and I also identified myself.
You identified yourself.
Yes.
And what response? With what response?
That no one is allowed up on the floor, on the top floor.
Police officers told you this.
That's correct, and